YouTubians, ODYSEEans, Slayin' Saiyans, Cobra Guys, and pumpkins who are smashing. I'm Asherella. This is Original Asherella, my desperate attempt for attention and validation from strangers on the internet, also known as a YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to be dissecting episodes 3 and 4 from the new Netflix series, Wednesday. Y'all, that is my attempt at doing Jenna Ortega's Wednesday, and oh my gosh, I am so much more expressive than that. It is so hard to keep it reined in like that. It's crazy. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about episodes 3 and 4 of Wednesday. Last Wednesday video I did, it was 1 and 2, right? That would make sense. And today we're going to be talking about episodes 3 and 4, and I'm going to be giving my thoughts and my feels as I do. And, so lots of stuff is happening in the story up to this point, and I'm going to jump into all of that in just 1 second. But before I do, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you're watching on ODYSEE, follow. Leave me a like. Leave me a dislike. Gently press the notification bell. Because we all know sex sells. Follow me on my things. I have the Insta thing and I have the Twitter thing. I could do that better if I practiced more. Okay, before I get started and before I sit down, I forgot to mention, my ensemble here is like Asherella as Wednesday at the Raven inspired. I think it's very Asherella, and I think it's very Raven Wednesday at the Raven dance. Like, the vibes are totally on, and like, I haven't worn this thing, it's actually shorts, in forever, and of course I wear this skirt all the time, but like, oh my god, like, I love this outfit. I think it's fantastic, and I probably wouldn't have put it together had I not been Wednesday Raven inspired. Just a side note. Okay, so we're going to be talking about episodes 3 and 4 of Wednesday. Now, the story is getting really deep, but before I really dive into the next two episodes, I do want to talk about a few characters that we were introduced to in the first two, but really aren't as relevant until you get into 3 and 4. First of all, Principal Weems. She's actually played a pretty significant part up to this point. She is the shapeshifter that I mentioned earlier, and we think she's doing something really sinister because of, like, the way things, like, shake out after Rowan gets killed by the monster. But Principal Weems, we find out early on that she and Morticia, Wednesday's mother, were roommates at Nevermore back in, like, Morticia and Gomez's day. And while they outwardly are like BFFs, they're really more like frenemies.
He's had a unique perspective on the world, Morticia. Tell you we were roommates back in the day.
And you can tell that there's a ton of like resentment and jealousy from Principal Weems toward Morticia. And Morticia, she was like total baddie babe, like captain of the fencing team, like, popular girl at Nevermore. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons that Wednesday is kind of pushing back against her parents at this point. She's in that teenage phase. I mentioned the sheriff, but I didn't talk about him too much. But he's like this small town gruff, wife passed away, raising a teenage son on his own. They're going through it, not dealing with the death of their mother well.
We're talking about Mom. Remember her?
Tide, what did I tell you? Come on, bud. Steer clear of Wednesday Adams. She's the kind of girl who's gonna get you hurt. Leave me another type.
Is that supposed to be about Mom?
And, like, small town sheriff with, like, a problem way bigger than he is, that he's trying to figure out with these murders of this monster, and he knows it's not really a bear that is attacking people, but he's got this school full of weirdos in his town, and so he's trying to keep the peace, but also figure out what's going on. We meet Lucas, who is also a townie kid, and now in the very first episode, Wednesday, like, kicks his butt because he comes in, starts harassing her.
So tell me, freak, you ever been with a normie?
I've never found one that could handle me.
It's very much that, like, jock versus freak, like, dynamic that we see in, like, scripts with teenage stories in it, you know what I mean? Lucas is the normie towny kid, but he's not only the normie towny kid, he's also the mayor's son, and the mayor used to be the sheriff, we find that out, but Lucas, he is basically a bully to all of the Nevermore kids, the outcast, but Wednesday kicks him and two of his friends' butts, and we also have the mayor, who used to be the sheriff that we learned is Lucas's dad, and not only did he used to be sheriff, and not only is he the mayor, and not only is he Lucas's dad, he also owns an amusement park type tourist destination there in the small town of Jericho called Pilgrim World, because Jericho was founded by the Pilgrims. The town of Jericho was founded by this pilgrim named Joseph Crackstone, and he's kind of the center of Pilgrim World. And we learn way more about that in episode 3. And before I get into episode 3, I do want to mention Ajax. He's there briefly in the first episode. He's like one of Xavier's friends, one of just like the teenage student kids. Ajax doesn't have a huge part in the story, but a little bit here just shortly. And I really like Ajax. He's probably my favorite teenage kid character so far. And he is an outcast, and he's a Gorgon. He has like snake hair, like Medusa hair, and if you look at his snakes, you will be stoned, but it's only temporary. Okay, so into episode 3. This is Outreach Day, where the kids from Nevermore go into the town of Jericho. It's kind of like a Founders Day festival thing, and volunteer at the town shops. It's a thing that they do to try to bring the school and the town together and celebrate the founding of Jericho. And all of the Nevermore kids are assigned local businesses to volunteer at. And one of those places is Pilgrim World, but another place is this like antique and oddity shop that Wednesday gets assigned to. And at first she's like, okay, cool, that seems like, you know, kind of like appropriate for Wednesday. But she ends up trading with Enid, her roommate, because Ajax is also assigned to the store, and we find out that Enid has a huge crush on Ajax. And not only does that work out for her, it also works out for Wednesday. We know that Wednesday is she knows that her being Wednesday Addams and the Addams family are linked to this town in some way, that are linked to Joseph Crackstone in some way, and that all has to do with this monster that is attacking people in the woods outside of Jericho and outside of Nevermore Academy. Wednesday, she has a strong feeling that it has something to do with that, so she kind of breaks into this place where they have history and artifacts because she has a vision where she sees this book, and before Rowan died, he had a freak out and said that Wednesday was going to be the destruction of the school, and there was a photo of a girl that looked like her, but we're not sure if it is actually Wednesday, because Wednesday keeps seeing a blonde Wednesday, basically, whose name is Goody Addams, and that happens in this, situation that we're in. So she's looking for this book. She goes into this place she's not supposed to be going into at Outreach Day when she's volunteering at Pilgrim World, and she finds that the one that they actually have on display was made by a creator on Etsy and is not the real one. So the staff member there at Pilgrim World lets Wednesday know that it was stolen recently. So, that happens. Wednesday is being forced to integrate into the school more. Like, she's having to go to therapy, and the therapist, didn't really talk about her much. She has not cracked Wednesday yet, but she's pretty quippy. Like, she's kind of very typical child therapist, which I think it's fun to watch Wednesday play off the therapist and vice versa. Like, nobody's really making any progress, or at least on the surface, but they are a really funny interaction. You know what I'm saying? So, Wednesday is being forced to, participate more in the school. She is forced to participate in outreach day. She is forced to join an extracurricular, and she does join, like, this beekeeping club, who the only other member of it is this nerdy kid named Eugene. And other than Enid, Eugene really is the only person Wednesday has formed, like, a real, not super complicated friendship with up to this point. And she makes mention that Eugene reminds her of Pugsley, and that's kind of, I think, why she has, like, you know, had a bit more of a soft spot for Eugene.
Nobody's ever stood up for me before.
You said Hummers stick together.
I know this might come as a shock, but I don't have any friends.
You remind me of my brother. Sans the desire to strangle him every waking moment.
But Eugene runs, like, the insect club, which is, like, the, you know, venomous insects, and they have beehives and things like that. And so Eugene and Wednesday are good friends. Eugene also has a big crush on Enid, which, you know, Enid is not interested in Eugene, at least not up to this point, because she really likes Ajax. And I personally, there's this little, like, flirty back and forth scene where Enid finally just has to break down and tell Ajax that she's got a crush on him. And he's, like, such a dumb teenage guy, like, not picking up on it. He's like, oh my god, that's what you were doing? And it's super cute and it's super adorable, and it's, like, that kind of thing in teenage movies that I love. So they plan to meet that night, but then Enid gets stood up by Ajax, and it broke my heart so much until you find out why. And Ajax accidentally stones himself by looking.
No!
So, you know, up to this point, we're seeing Wednesday being, you know, kind of forced to participate, forced to join, forced to do this type of stuff in the school. And not only does she have to go volunteer at Pilgrim World, Wednesday is a cello virtuoso, and we've seen her play in either the first or the second episode. And Principal Weems volunteers Wednesday to play with the local high school marching band while they're performing at the unveiling of the Joseph Crackstone statue / fountain thing, a Fleetwood Mac medley, right? And so, of course, Wednesday does not want to do that, but does she really have a choice? She doesn't have a choice. But it wouldn't be Wednesday if she didn't cause some type of chaos at this unveiling of Joseph Crackstone statue. And while she kind of masterminds this plan, Thing executes it, and it's this fountain thing, and he fills it with gasoline, and basically they blow up the statue, and then everybody's running away from this ceremony, and Wednesday's just continuing to play on her cello, and it's very Wednesday Addams. And I love that vibe. Like I mentioned how cold and how insufferable Wednesday could be in the first episode especially. I said she's getting better in the second episode, and she's certainly become a lot more likable, and she's actually interacting with people. She's really starting to dismiss people less. But she is being very manipulative, and I am further along than episode 4. So I'm not going to talk about that until we get into the episode that really shows Wednesday's tendency to use people who care about her. That is really, really one of her biggest character flaws. You know, Wednesday not being a joiner, not being enthusiastic, not being peppy and bubbly and that kind of thing, that's fine. But she definitely has a tendency to manipulate and use people. And we'll talk about that later on in the next Asherella Wednesday video. But yeah, so that episode ends kind of funny. She's had some more premonitions. She's not that much closer into finding out about this monster. But so far so good. You know, one thing that I love about how these episodes are written and laid out is that each episode, things happen. Things are happening rapid pace, right? And there's only 8 episodes of the series, but it's not like, it's not a slow burn up until, you know, the last episode or two where there's action. It's like, I mean, this show has had action from episode 1. Out the gate, we've got monster attacks, we've got magic, we've got cryptids, we've got emotional drama. You know, Wednesday is already in this kind of love triangle with Tyler and Xavier, and, you know, and I will say, Wednesday to be so off-putting and so just unengaging with people, she has really, really made an impression at Nevermore. She's got a couple of guys drooling over her. Like, everybody knows about her. Everybody's talking about Wednesday. She's got the most popular girl at Nevermore, Bianca, which I don't buy the whole most popular girl thing, but she's a siren, so she's able to manipulate, and that's a whole other story. But she got the most popular girl in school jealous of her. And so Wednesday, like, she's kind of got it going on. You know what I mean? As much as she don't want to have it going on, or as much as she doesn't care that she's got it going on, Wednesday, she's got it going on. Which leads us into episode 4, which is the Raven Dance. And that's the RAV''N. And it is a big dance that they have every year, that they've had every year for the history of Nevermore. Which I really like. You know, I mean, obviously it's the Raven Dance, like the Raven, Edgar Allan Poe, but then rave in, like, it's a pun. It's just a pun about ravens, right? Okay. But, so that's the big event in episode 4. And Wednesday, of course, is not planning to go to the Raven, and we would not expect Wednesday to be all excited for a school dance. But in Wednesday's investigation into this monster, she sneaks out into Xavier, the psychic artist studio in the woods, and gets caught out there. And her excuse for being out there, or, you know, messing around Xavier stuff, is because she wanted to ask Xavier to go to the Raven with her. And he's like, yeah, cool, awesome, we're gonna go. So then she kind of has to go, but then she sneaks out there again and gets caught in his stuff, and he realizes that the only reason she was out there the first time was to break into his stuff. Now, I will say, Xavier does happen to turn up everywhere the monster is. It's like he shows up immediately after the monster is seen, and we have seen that Xavier has sketches and paintings and all this kind of stuff of the monster. So, do I think Xavier is the monster or is controlling the monster? No, but I am eager to see how they play that out. How it just so happens that Xavier just happens to be there when the monster shit happens. I mean, he is a psychic, so I don't know. Maybe he just knows where to be. So then Wednesday is not going to go to the Raven, so her and Eugene plan to go stake out this cave they found that they think the monster lives in, or is the monster's hole or whatever. But then Thing, being very manipulative and very, like, you know, Thing has always got something going on, and he is, like, to be a hand, he has played a huge part in the story so far, and I personally love what they've done with Thing so far. Thing is one of the best fucking characters on the show so far, and there's a lot of good characters on the show, and Thing is awesome. I love what Thing is doing. But anyway, he types up a note, sends it to Tyler, the normie kid, the barista kid, the kid that Wednesday is kind of in this love triangle with, leaves it in his tip jar, inviting him to the Raven. He shows up, Wednesday's like, what are you doing here? And, he's like, we're going to the Raven, and she's like, crap. And so Thing actually stole her a dress that's similar to what I'm wearing right here. Not similar, but in, like, my outfit's inspired by. And so she really doesn't have a choice. So she ends up going to the Raven, this big dance with Tyler, which of course you knew Wednesday was going to go to the Raven. And they're actually, like, everything's going good. Everything's sort of okay. Xavier's crying because Wednesday's there with Tyler, whatever. Whatever, right? And I have to comment, I can't let this go by without commenting on Wednesday's dancing. Wednesday's dancing is kind of a cross between, like, a lost martial art, animal imitation, and, like, some type of trance.
cruise through the city and I roam the streets, looking for something that is nice to eat. You better die when I show up.
It's definitely unique, but typical to TV shows and movies that have teenage dances in them, rather than the whole crowd being like totally weirded out by the weird kids dancing, they dig it. And then they all start dancing around and appreciating what's happening and what's going on. Two great examples of that outside of Wednesday is the Brady Bunch movie. A very Brady movie, the Brady Bunch parody movie from the 90s, where Marsha Brady starts doing her like thumb thing when Davy Jones is performing, and then everybody else in the gymnasium, auditorium, wherever they're having the dance, instead of being like, what the heck is wrong with that crazy weird 60s chick, they start doing the thumb dance too.
I'm telling you, girl, something unknown to me makes you what you are, and what you are is all that I want for me. And it's good to feel that way, girl. Thank you, girl, for making the winter warmer, girl, for making the music softer, girl, for making a better world for me.
And then, okay, also in the movie Can't Buy Me Love, where the guy tries to learn to dance, he thinks he's watching like Soul Train or something, and he's really watching some kind of like African mating dance thing, whatever. They all start doing that dance at the prom too, right? That's just what happens in these types of scenes in entertainment, right? But it's cute, I like it, and everything's going well until blood starts raining down on the attendees of the Raven. And who is responsible for this blood raining down on the attendees of the Raven? Well, none other than Mayor's son, townie kid Lucas. Now, how did he get to the Raven? How did he get access to everything? Well, after Ajax accidentally stood Enid up, Lucas approaches Enid and is like, hey, I hear you don't have a dance for the Raven. And she's like, you want to go with me, but you're a normie, I'm an outcast. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to be different, which is total BS lie. He's just tricking them. So Lucas, the dude that Wednesday's beat up twice at this point, takes Enid to the dance, and right before his cronies come in with a fire truck full of blood, aka red paint, he's being regretful. He's like, oh, Enid's kind of cool, and maybe I don't want to do this, and he's having a good time. But then they do it anyway. They hook a fire hose up to the sprinkler system, and it starts raining down blood. But Wednesday's like, it's paint, so it's just red paint, and then that ruins the Raven dance.
They couldn't even spring for real pig's blood. It's only paint.
But then, at the very end of the Raven episode, because Eugene and Wednesday were supposed to go stake out this monster hole, and Wednesday ends up going to the dance, Eugene, despite what Wednesday tells him to do, he still goes and stakes out and gets attacked by the monster. And then we don't know at the end of the episode if Eugene is dead or alive. And I am just like, oh my god. Because up to this point, Eugene, you're so endeared to him by this point. You know, throughout like a few episodes, you're like, oh my god, if Eugene dies, I am gonna lose my shit. Now, that being said, the fact that we already have such emotional attachments to some of these characters 4 episodes in lets you know this is a pretty good damn show so far. So that's pretty much it for today's episode, guys. I like it, I dig it, I'm really getting latched on to some of the characters as I do, but when you do that, it's because it's a good show and it's good writing. But I am Asherella. This is my Asherella as Wednesday at the Raven look. This is my channel, Original Asherella. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you're watching on ODYSEE, follow. You can gently caress the notification bell on either platform so you know every time I upload a video. You can leave me a like, you can leave me a comment, you can leave me a dislike if you like to, or if you're like Wednesday Adams. You can find my Twitch channel, it's Original Asherella. Different content than here, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Kino and commentary. It's a movie show. Check that out. Follow me and find me on my things. I have the Insta thing and I have the Twitter thing. Always tap in, never tap out, and don't forget to keep on slaying like I say.